Hello and welcome to the fifth video of this tutorial series. In the last video, we added workflow to our forms and set up some notifications and a trigger to automatically change overdue tasks to overdue. In this video, we're going to add, customize, and embed some views on one of our forms. So let's get started. Start by navigating to the Views section of the app editor. As you can see, we have two views here already, one for each form. We're going to start with the All Task Management view, which is the initial view our first form came with. Go ahead and click Edit to open the view editor. So this is the view editor. Across the header, we have three tabs. The Settings and Filters tab are going to be similar in all three view types available on the platform. This is a table view, and the other two view types are the Calendar view and the Kanban view. The middle tab here will be specific to the view type. So since we're working with a table view, we have table columns as our middle tab. A table view is the most common type of view. It organizes records as a table or list, similar to an email inbox. Let's head over to the Settings tab, and let's start by changing the name of this view to something more fitting. We're ultimately going to want three views for our project records: a view for all active projects, a view for all archived projects, and finally, a project calendar view. So let's make this one our active projects view. I'm going to rename it to active projects. We're going to come back to the rest of these settings in a moment, but for now, let's head back over to the Table Columns tab. So here we have a list of all the field data visible in our view. We don't need all of this information visible, so let's go through and pick out what's important. We don't need to see the record ID, so I'm going to click the X on the right end of the column to remove it. We'll keep the project title, project manager, start date, and estimated completion date visible. We don't need to see the status, since this view is only going to show us active projects anyway. And we also aren't going to need the next four system fields, so let's remove those as well. So these are all the columns we want. Now let's edit some of our column settings to make sure our data is displayed exactly how we want it. Let's start with our start date column. To open the column settings, click the little eye icon on the right end of the column. Here on the right is our column settings panel. Starting at the top, we can override the column name, which by default always matches the field name. As you can see, when I tick this on, the original column name, that is the field name, is visible in parentheses next to the new name. We'll leave the start date name as is. We can change the column width and alignment here. Since dates are usually quite small, let's make this column extra small, and we'll leave the alignment as left justified for now. And we'll also leave it as clip for content overflow, since our dates won't be overflowing anyway. And finally, I like setting the format to short date, so let's select that one. Now let's do the same for the estimated completion date column. We'll make it extra small and set it to short date. Now this field name is a little long for the extra small column size. Right now, since it's set to clip, the field name will clip once it reaches the end of the column, meaning we won't see the entire field name. We could set it to wrap, but I think I'm going to override this field's name and just make it into an acronym. I'll put ECD. That'll do it for our columns for now, so let's go ahead and save and move on to the Filters tab. The Filters tab is where we go to set the sorting and grouping rules for our records, as well as add filters to our view so we only see the records we want. We may also set search rules for our records to make the search function faster and more specific. We won't be using any search rules for this tutorial, but just know that this is where you can go to set them. Let's go ahead and add a filter to this view. Since this is our active projects view, we want to filter it to only show records in the active stage. So let's add a filter and choose status as the field. Then we'll use equals as the operator. And finally, let's select our active stage. Great. Our view will now only display records in the active stage. We'll leave uneditable on. This just means that users cannot remove or change this filter when using the view. Users won't have the ability to permanently change any view, but they may choose temporary sorting or filtering settings while using it. By keeping this ticked on, we're basically saying that the user cannot remove or alter this filter, even temporarily. The last two sections of the Filters tab are exports, which are rules for exporting data, and security, which controls who has access to this view. As you can see in the Exports tab, we don't have PDF export turned on. If we go ahead and tick this on, you'll see we're then prompted to choose a PDF template to use for exports. We don't have a template and we're not going to create one for this tutorial, but just know that this is where you can enable PDF exports for your views and choose the template. PDFs can also be generated as a part of your workflow using a Generate PDF action on an action button, or also using a trigger to generate one on a schedule or an action. Let's go ahead and tick this back off, and that pretty much does it for this view. Let's save our view and then launch it. Here we have our test record we made a couple videos ago, and it looks pretty good, but let's take another look at the view settings. Go ahead and click on the 3 dots More Settings icon in the far right end of the header bar. Here we can export our data, access the settings from the Settings tab directly in the view, and we can also jump directly into the view or form editor. Go ahead and click on Settings. This right side settings panel shows us all the view settings from the Settings tab on the View Editor. Some of these settings will be useful on our task views, but for this view we're only going to use the preview pane, so go ahead and tick that on. Let's make the preview pane take up 75% of our view, and we'll leave the other settings as they are. Then let's scroll all the way down to the formatting settings. Let's go with Compact Display Density to make our records display a little bit smaller. Then let's choose a header color. I'll go with a green color to match our active stage color. We'll leave the footer color as the default. Our view won't show a footer. If we had a number or currency field on our form and view, we could choose to apply an operation like average, min, max, or sum to that field, and then our footer would appear and display the result. Finally, let's tick on alternating row colors just to make it a bit easier to distinguish rows from one another. And we'll leave the colors as they are. Now, whenever you make changes to the view settings using the In-View Settings panel, you must save by again going to the 3 dots icon and clicking Save. Alternatively, you may choose to make edits to a view and then use the Save View As button to create a new view with the settings you've chosen and leave the current view as it was. Let's click Save. Now, the setting we turned on was Preview Pane. This setting lets us open records in a right side preview window, opposed to redirecting away from the view to open the record. So when I click on our test record, as you can see, it opens within the view. Let's go ahead and complete this record really quick so we can see how a completed record will display. To edit a record in our preview pane, simply click the edit button in the top right corner of the preview window. I'll make myself the project manager, and I'll put today's date as the start date, and the estimated completion date can be a week from now. And for the details, I'll just put this is a test record. Then click Save. So this view looks pretty good right now. Let's move on to our second project view, the Archived Projects view. This one will take us much less time. Let's start by heading into the App Editor using the Edit App button near the bottom of our app navigation. Then let's go to the Views section. Finally, click the 3 dots icon on our Active Projects View card and select Duplicate. And let's rename it to Archived Projects and click Copy. It has taken us directly to the new View Settings tab, so let's scroll down to the Formatting section and change our header color to a purplish color to match the archived stage color. Then let's head over to the Filters tab and change our filter to only show records from the archived stage instead of the active stage. Perfect. Let's save our view and run it. Since we have no archived records, there's no data to display here, but since we made a copy of our first view, all the settings and column properties are going to be identical. We're going to add one more view to this form, so let's head back into the App Editor and navigate to the Views section. Let's create a new view using the New View button on the left of the header bar. We're going to create a project's calendar, so let's name it that. And let's choose our project's form and select Calendar as the view type. Then click Create. Here we are in the View Editor again, except as you can see, our middle tab has changed to Calendar. Let's go ahead and customize our calendar. The calendar type determines the calendar's default display format. This can be temporarily changed by users within the view itself in the top right corner of the view. However, upon leaving the view and returning, the view will again be set to this default format. Hide weekends just hides the weekends on the calendar. And enable creating records from calendar will make it so we can click and drag to select a series of days on the calendar, and we will then be redirected to a new record with the start and end date pre-filled with the dates we chose. We're going to leave these 3 calendar settings as they are for this view. The calendar options is where we can control which records will display and how they appear on the calendar. We can have multiple calendar option sets for one calendar, and as you can see on the bottom here, we can set filters for each option set to only show the data we want. Note that the filtering options here can override the filters set in the Filters tab. Let's start by giving this calendar option set a name. We'll call it Active Projects. The event title is what will display on the calendar, so let's choose our project title field. The color type isn't important for this specific calendar since we're only going to be showing records from the active stage, but keeping it on status is useful for calendars that will display records from multiple stages. Our active stage has a green color, so if we stick with this option, all records will appear green on the calendar, but you may also use a custom color if you wish. For the start date, let's use our start date field, and for the end date, let's go with the estimated completion date field. The last thing we need to do is add a status filter since we are only interested in active projects for this calendar. So let's add a filter using the status field, the equals operator, and finally we'll select our active stage. We're nearly done with this view, but let's head over to the Settings tab. I like having Preview Pane turned on to limit the number of redirects necessary when using the app, so I'm going to tick that on and select the 75% display size. Let's also go with the Compact Display Density, and let's choose a header color. I'll go with blue. Now let's save our view and then launch it to check it out. Nice, this looks good. Let's move on to our task views. As you can see in the navigation, we have a view called All Tasks. Let's select it. We're going to do some in-view editing for this one, but first let's open the view editor and choose which columns we want to see. The quickest way to the view editor, as well as the form editor for this form, is using the 3 dots icon at the far right end of the header bar, then select Edit View. We're going to be creating several views for our tasks. First, we're going to create a view for each stage, so an in-progress task view, a completed task view, and an overdue task view. To make these 3 views, we're going to customize one view and then duplicate it twice and make some minor adjustments. So let's get started with our columns. We aren't going to need the record ID field, the comments field, or the 4 fields at the bottom, so let's get rid of all of those. Then let's rearrange our columns. Let's put the status first, then the task title, followed by task details, then the due date, the assignee, and finally the project. Perfect. Let's go ahead and save and then move over to the Settings tab. We'll name this one In Progress Tasks. And let's leave the other settings as they are for now, and let's do some in-view editing. So go ahead and click the Save and Close button to return to the view. Let's start by editing the column properties. We'll start with the status field. Click the column header to open the properties. Let's center this column's alignment. Then let's change the column width to extra small. And last, let's change the format to icon and color. Okay, moving on. Let's make sure the task title is left aligned and medium sized. Good. The task details can also be left aligned. And then let's make sure the wrap column is set to wrap instead of clip. And the size can also stay medium. For the due date, let's make this column extra small and change the format to the shortest date. We'll leave the assignee field as is. And finally, a little trick we can do with the last column, the project column, is make it extra large. Doing this will push all our other columns a little bit closer together. All right, this looks good so far. The last thing we should do is make sure our view is sorted by the due date. We want the tasks due first to appear at the top of the list, so let's click our due date field column header again and select Sort Ascending. Now, when we make changes to our view in this way, we have to save our settings or else they will be lost when we redirect away from the view. So let's click the 3 dots icon again and click Save. Next, let's edit some of the view's settings in view. To do so, click the 3 dots icon once again and click Settings. Let's turn on Preview Pane and leave it at 50%. We'll also leave these other options as they are. Then let's turn on Edit Cells in Table and also Easy Add Records. This first feature allows us to edit a record's field data directly from the view by clicking in the field like this. The second feature allows us to add records directly in the view using the Add New Record button here. Let's also tick on Show Action Column. This feature gives us access to the form's action buttons from within the view. Let's customize the format a little. I'm going to go with the compact display density, and I'll give this one a yellow color to match our in-progress status color. And finally, let's turn on alternating row colors. This view is looking pretty good, so let's save again by using the three dots icon and clicking Save. Now, we could add our filtering from within the view using the filters options here on the header bar. However, we can't make any filters we add here uneditable. So let's open the view editor using the three dots icon and clicking Edit View. And let's head over to the Filters tab. Then let's add a filter for status and choose equals in progress. Great. This view is done. Let's save and close and then head back into the app editor and navigate to the Views section. Then let's click the three dots icon on our new In Progress Tasks view card and select Duplicate. Let's name this one Overdue Tasks and press Copy. Now, let's make a few minor adjustments. First, let's turn off editable cells, which will also turn off Easy Add Records. Then, let's scroll all the way to the bottom and just change the header color to match the status, which will be a red color. Then, let's head over to the Filters tab and change the status filter from In Progress to Overdue. Great. Then, hit Save and Close. Finally, let's duplicate once more. Either the In Progress view or the Overdue Task view will work. Let's name this one Completed Tasks and hit Copy. Then let's scroll down and change the header color to green. For this view, we aren't going to need editable cells, so we can turn that off. We also won't need the action column since we have no action buttons in the completed stage. So let's take that off. Then let's head over to the Filters tab and change the status to Filter by Completed. Wonderful. Let's save and close. All right, let's create just a couple more views. We're going to create a view which will group our records together, and we'll also create one that will only show tasks that are assigned to the logged in user. Let's begin by duplicating our completed tasks view. Let's rename this view to All Tasks Grouped by Project and click Copy. Let's head over to the Filters section and remove the status filter. Then in the default grouping section, let's select the project field. Let's sort it descending and choose a custom color. I'll go with a very light blue. Let's also tick on each of these boxes. The first will put the field name, which is project, above the project name in the group. The second will tell us how many records are in the group. And the last will hide the project column, since it would be a bit redundant to show it twice. Let's then head over to the Settings tab and just change the header color to something different. I'll go with a slightly darker blue than my group color. Nice. Let's save and then launch into the view. All right, this looks pretty good, but let's add one more level of grouping. We can do this directly within the view using the Filters button here. Let's scroll down to the grouping section and let's pick the status field to group by. Great. Then let's click this little arrow to change some of the settings. We'll leave Show Label unticked, but let's tick on the other two. And finally, let's change the color. I'll go with a very light orange. Perfect. Let's save using the three dots icon and clicking Save. All right, now let's create our final view. So head back into the view editor and open up the Views section. Then let's duplicate our completed tasks view again and name this one My Tasks. Let's start by changing the header color. I'll go with white for this one. Then let's head over to the Filters tab and change the status filter. We can select the first drop down here, and we'll just use the assignee field, and we'll say equals, and then we'll change fixed to relative, and finally we'll select logged in user as the value. So this view will now only show the user records that have their name in the assignee field. Lastly, let's group these records by status, okay? And we'll tick on Show Count and Hide Column. Perfect. That does it for our views. Let's move on to the last part of the video, which is to embed some of these views into our project form. So let's save and close. Then let's select our project's form and open the design editor. We're going to embed some views on this form to make it easier to add tasks to specific projects directly from the form. This will make more sense once we're done, so let's get started. To begin, let's make it so our project details are separate from our tasks. We could just add another section below this one, but let's make this a tabbed form instead and put our tasks on a separate tab. To do this, we're going to select the Form, Layout, and Appearance options button here on the header bar. Here we can customize our form's layout. We can also create multiple layouts to display during different stages of the record's life, on Create, on View, and on Edit. We won't be creating multiple layout options, but you can add more layout options using this drop down here and clicking New Layout. Let's customize this layout. We'll leave the name as default layout, and we'll leave the visibility settings as they are since this is the only layout we're using. Let's change the form type to tab. We'll leave the rest of these settings as they are, but feel free to customize them. They're just some appearance options for the form. But let's scroll down to the bottom and change some of the tab appearance options. Let's make the tabs appear centered, change the tab size to comfortable, and give the tabs a white background color. Great. Now, let's start customizing our tabs. To do so, click the eye icon here on the top of the form. This is the Tabs Properties panel. It's where we can customize our tabs, add and remove tabs, and move sections between tabs. Let's change the name of this first tab to Project Details. Okay, then let's add a new tab using the button on the bottom of this panel. Let's name this tab Tasks. Nice. Now, as you can see, we can click between our tabs and we're ready to embed our views. Let's close the Tabs Properties panel and select our Tasks tab. I'm going to change the name of this section to Tasks. Then let's grab a view component from the fields list on the left and drag it into our section. Let's choose the In Progress Tasks view and click Add Field. Let's then open up this field's properties to customize it further. Click the eye icon here to open the field properties. We can rename the field here if you wish. This doesn't change the actual view name, it just changes the name here on the form. Let's leave it as is for now, and let's open up the filters section of the properties. The first thing we want to make sure is that the view is filtered by the current record and that the project field is selected here. This means that this view will only show task records that are assigned to the current project. We may further filter our records using filters here, but our view already has all the filters we want, so we won't add any new filters. Finally, let's open up the Table Properties section. We're going to leave these settings as they are, but an important setting here is the Prefill Form setting. We want to make sure that records created using this view component will prefill our task records project field with the appropriate project, which is what it's already doing. You may also choose to prefill other fields here, but we don't need that for our app. Now, when using either the plus symbol here or the Add New Record button here, which is from the Easy Add Record setting we enabled on our In Progress View settings, the project field will match the project record we're viewing. We'll test this in a moment, but first, let's add two more view components, one for completed tasks and one for overdue tasks. So let's close the Properties panel, then let's drag in another view component below our In Progress view, and let's select our Overdue Tasks view. The properties for this one are already set properly, so let's add our last view, the Completed Tasks view, on the bottom. Let's save and then launch our form. Let's go ahead and open up our test project record we created a few videos ago to test these views out. So let's navigate to the Active Projects view and select our record. Then let's go to the Tasks tab. This looks great. The only task we have in here right now is the overdue task we created earlier. Let's go ahead and add a record in the Embedded In Progress view using the Add New Record button. Then let's fill out some of the fields by clicking directly in the row. I'll just put some arbitrary data. As you can see at the end here, our project field was automatically populated. Then let's hit Submit to move our record from the draft stage to the In Progress stage. Great. Now we can view, create, and take actions on tasks specific to our project directly from the project form. That does it for our application views. In this video, we created several views, customized them to fit our needs, and embedded a few views on our project form to make it easier to manage our project tasks. In the next video, we're going to take a look at our application roles and set up the security and permissions for our app. See you then.